Good afternoon, everybody. I'm absolutely delighted to be here, and thank you very much to ECO-REC for the invitation for this conference. My Greek is very bad, and I'm not going to even try and attempt to say any words, so I'm afraid I'm going to have to make this presentation in English, but I hope more or less everything will be apparent. I'll try and make some hand gestures and stuff like that, and we hope we get through it. For my presentation today, I would simply like to offer you an overview of our organization Rreuse, some of innovative practice examples from the field of reuse and repair, and why it's important really to support the role at national level of social enterprise in the circular economy. So Rreuse, we're a European network representing social enterprises working in the field of reuse, repair and recycling. And experience has shown that waste management and waste prevention activities, especially reuse and repair, are really work intensive and have a lot of opportunities for job creation. And many of our members provide job and training opportunities for people who are most distanced from the labour market and at risk of exclusion. And they find reuse and repair an excellent activity in order to be able to provide these opportunities. These organizations, they very much help foster social innovation, local cohesion, community development and innovation. And later on we'll hear some great examples of innovation, for example in the field of used cooking oils and the opportunities for different creation and valorization of materials in that sector. Our role as an association, we're Brussels based, is really to try and promote a policy environment that helps develop the role of social enterprise in the circular economy by really trying to encourage new partnerships between social enterprises, public authorities and the private sector. Currently we have 27 members across 24 countries, and this represents a wider network of around 1,000 individual social enterprises. Within Greece we have two members, ECO-REC, who I guess many of you know because they are the organizers of this conference, and Climax Plus. Climax Plus is a social cooperative based, well not only here around Greece as well, working in the field of paper recycling as well as catering services. And so today, when we break out for lunch, the catering services will be provided by Climax Plus, and I hope you very much enjoy it. We've already had an opportunity to sample some of their food, and it's really, really excellent. And in total, we represent some 130,000 workers, trainees and volunteers across those 1,000 individual organizations that I've already mentioned. The primary areas of work that these organizations have activities in is with household goods. So textiles, furniture, electronics, a whole range of materials. And on average, annually, we collectively collect around 1 million tons of materials. But I would say the predominant products would be textiles, electronics, and furniture. Yes, per year. The 1 million tons is per year. This is just a kind of a photograph of one of the reuse centers that we have in our network from the Netherlands, Rataplan, just to give you an idea that many of the organizations, many of the examples which I give are very much based on the second-hand sector and the opportunities to try and promote waste prevention through second-hand. This diagram is just there to show the opportunities in job creation between the different waste treatment and waste prevention activities, and we can see very much that for reuse of activities there is definitely a lot more potential per given amount of material than recycling, landfill and incineration, although recycling of course is still very important, but there's lots of opportunities that can be untapped. And I'd now like to go a little bit more into some individual examples from the field, just to show you some new things which our members are involved with. And the first activity which I wanted to talk about is in the field of electronics. It's a little bit related to what was said earlier on in terms of mobility. We have a member in France called Envie. They are one of the biggest collectors of waste electronics in France. They collect around 150,000 tons of electronic waste. They are a collective of 50 different social enterprises across the whole of France, and 5 of them have come together on a new project to refurbish medical equipment that's very much catered towards mobility. So, for example, walkers, wheelchairs, things which we spoke a little bit about earlier on. And they have now launched this new activity to be able to provide second-hand used goods with a guarantee directly for people who need it. Today, one of those organizations collects around 2,000 of these mobility equipments and is able to reuse around 800 of them. And with this activity, they can employ 5 people, and 3 of them are people who are distanced from the labor market. So it just gives you a really interesting idea. And this new scheme is going to go national very soon, and you have a website where you can go and you can buy second-hand used goods, which are very much for the medical sector to help improve your mobility for a fraction of the price of new, because all this is very much expensive, and it's a really good example of what's pretty new in our network. The second activity, which is very, I would say, many of our members work in, is the field of textiles and sorting. We recently calculated that for every 3 containers of textiles which are collected, these containers, these bins which you can donate your second-hand clothes to, that 1 job can be created in the sorting of those clothes. Have to be valorized in some way locally within the territory of Antwerp and not to be exported. And what's important also to realize is recently European legislation in the Waste Framework Directive is asking for mandatory source separation of textiles by 2025. So I can imagine in Greece there will also become a discussion about how to set up these systems by the time those laws come into play. And the last example which I wanted to share with you concerns construction and demolition materials. The example which you see on the screen behind me is from a project which is happening in Austria. It's called Baukarussell, and the idea is to reuse and valorize construction and demolition materials as much as possible. This is an old bottling factory, actually an old Coca-Cola bottling factory, which was in the heart of Vienna. And the idea was to try and selectively dismantle the factory before it was actually demolished, and to use as many many building components as possible. So here you have, for example, the tiles from the ceiling, which are being removed selectively. And this activity managed to save 1% of the total demolition mass from being completely wasted. So they managed to valorize 1% of the whole demolition mass, which was around 450 tons of material. And they managed to generate a turnover of about 100,000 euros through this particular activity. So it's a new area which our members are looking more and more into, the idea of selectively demolishing buildings, and it's really, I think, one for the future, because it's very work intensive. So beyond those examples, just to give a snapshot of what we're doing at European level, as I mentioned, our role in Brussels is to really try and promote European policies that help develop new partnerships between social enterprises, public authorities, and the private sector. And our key areas of work in terms of policy are around waste policy, so for example, concerning the changes to the European Waste Framework Directive, product policy, eco-design, to ensure that products coming on the EU market are easily repairable and reusable, to try and promote better procurement measures to look beyond lowest cost, but also to look at green procurement and social procurement, to try and highlight the possibility that municipalities can support the development of social enterprise by, for example, partnering with them directly in the collection of waste. So on the one hand, they can have a service that is very efficient for them, and on the other hand, they're promoting local jobs in their community. And we're also looking a lot at fiscal policy recently. For example, how can we look at the reduction of VAT according to the waste hierarchy? And there's a number of initiatives in different countries that are offering economic incentives for citizens to repair, for second-hand goods to be cheaper, for repair services to be cheaper, to make us think reuse and repair first rather than throwing away. So I won't go into any of those details, but in case you wanted to know at some point really what we're working on, I'm happy to talk about that later. So that's really everything from me as a general overview of what we do, and yes, happy to answer any questions in the future. Thanks.
Thank you very much.